So let's pray. Father, we thank you for the money that you give us, even in the message this morning, talking about finances and principles that govern our lives. It's such an important part of our lives, and you don't leave us hanging on what we should be doing. So I pray that the classes that we're going through here on finances will be helpful. And as we talk about credit and debt today, that this is not the most pleasant of topics, but it's one that's very important. So I pray that you'd help us in Christ's name. Amen. Okay, so let's get rolling on this one. We're going to start out. Did the door get locked? Yeah. Okay, let's play a game. See how many of you know who advertises these things. See how versed you are in your advertisements. Okay, let's see. I'll show you an advertisement, and then you got to figure out what company advertises. Some of these, they no longer have the same advertisements, and others do. Still keep them because they work, all right? Okay, you deserve a break today.
McDonald's.
Who?
McDonald's.
Who said Tic Tac? Kit Kat?
Give me a break.
It's McDonald's. You deserve a break today. Because I'm worth it. This is a girl thing. L'Oreal. Okay, because you're worth it. You deserve better. You deserve better. How about J.C. Penney? I don't know. I don't go to J.C. Penney. I don't know. I have it your way. You know this one. Huh?
Subway.
No. I don't think so.
Oh.
I think it's Burger King, isn't it?
Oh.
Have it your way. Let's sing the song, everybody. Have your way. Oh, forget it. This is being recorded. Don't mess it up. Okay. We want more. More is better. Ooh. I think that's the buffet downtown. I don't know. AT&T. When you care enough to send the very best. Hallmark. So I remember that for Christmas, okay? And how many of you watch the Hallmark movies? How many of you have diabetes? How many of you have diabetes as a result of watching Hallmark movies? Let me give you the plot of every Hallmark movie. You don't have to watch any of them. But never mind. Okay. Tastes great, less filling. If you know this one, was it? Bud Light. There you go. All right. So glad some of you know that. But Miller Lite. You're watching too much football if you know that one. Okay. There are some things money can't buy. For everything else, there's MasterCard. All right. You're great at this. Winning takes care of everything. That's Donald Trump thing, isn't it? No. Nike. And guess who? So then it appears that we're not really responsible if it, late Tuesday, it appears that we're not really responsible. If it weren't for Satan, we would not have a problem with being discontent. Homer Simpson. That's not advertisements, but it's kind of cool. Okay. Credit and debt. We're going to talk about that tonight and look at some things. Here's a definition of debt. Any money owed to anybody for anything. All right, so that's pretty broad, isn't it? If you owe money to anybody, you're in debt. There's different kinds of debt, though, and that's what we want to talk about tonight. Some is better than others. There's a lot of danger to debt. Debt itself is not sinful. We'll see some scripture on that tonight. But scriptures discourage the use of debt, but it does not totally prohibit debt. So we would have to wonder, however, what the Apostle Paul might think if he was writing the epistles today about our debt limits and so forth. Debt is really not the real problem for most people, but often the symptom of problems. We're in debt for different reasons: our greed, our self-indulgence, our impatience, lack of self-control, love of things, and so forth is often the reason. So we have our definition of debt, but let's talk about why debt is dangerous, because it reverses compounding. We talked about compounding as far as saving last time, and we're going to be looking at that more in the future. But debt reverses that so that we're compounding expenses to pay somebody else. For example, if you have a $15,000 car loan for 6 years at 12%. So in our world today, that's a used car that you went to the bank and got a personal loan for. I'm not sure what a personal loan at a bank would be now, but that might be about where it'd be for this kind of vehicle, a car. Anyway, if you go at those numbers, you would pay off, you would pay $21,114 towards that car over the next 6 years, and when 6 years were up, it'd be worth $6,000. So as you can see, we didn't do ourselves any great favors financially in the process. We paid $21,000 for what we now have as a 5-year, $5,000 car. Jim,
I don't mean to be nitpicky, but
Yeah.
it's simple interest, not compounding interest.
why? Huh?
Yeah, it's simple interest. It's principal times rate times time. So that's simple interest. If it was compounding interest, the interest payment at the end would be a lot more. Because you'd be compounding 12% every year.
Okay. Okay,
But you're right,
You're-
though, the
you're-
interest works against you.
Works against you. Right.
That's correct.
that's the point. Okay, good point. Thank you. Debt then becomes a trap that we have. So let's take the danger of debt again, looking at this issue here. As it becomes a trap, when a person decides to get out of debt, let's say you're in debt, you want to get out of debt, you're going to have to stop going into debt, first of all, and then you're going to have to start paying back the debt, all the while you're paying interest, and all the while you can't purchase things you want to purchase because you're paying off debt. So basically, debt becomes your life because you're paying off debt rather than being able to buy things that you might want or need. So here's an example. Debt always mortgages the future. A $5,000 credit card debt at $250 a month, if you're paying that much for the paying off that debt, would take you 2 years to pay that off at 18% interest. Now, credit card companies vary, but they go anywhere from about 16, 17% interest up to 25% interest for a credit card debt. So if you're in credit card debt, it's very hard to get out of. Now, there's one other kind of debt that's worse. That's going to the mafia and getting money from them. That's worse. But there's also the payday loan companies and the mortgage companies. Down there, most of them, I think, seem to be on MacArthur down there. And every time I see one of those places, I want to throw up. It's such a disaster. And there's many, many people going down and getting loans. And they're the worst. They're the people that can least afford to do this. These are people that don't have money anywhere else, can't get money anywhere else. So they're getting a payday loan on the next paycheck they're going to get. Or they give their title for their car, title loans. They give the title to their car to get $2,000 or $3,000 from this company. If they can't pay it back at exorbitant interest rates, by the way, then if you can't pay it back, then you'll lose your car. And a lot of people do that, apparently, otherwise they wouldn't be in business. So it's such a tragedy, and we have known people here who have done those kind of things, and you just can't get out of it. Because the people that are doing that are people that are probably making minimum wage. They don't have a means to pay off these kinds of bills, and they're just stuck. There's no way or hardly around it.
There's
Kurt?
actually legitimate legislative efforts to outlaw those because they're considered completely predatory.
Yeah, but they've talked about that for a long time. Is there any
They've
progress?
never gotten anywhere,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
Yeah, so I know for years and years they've talked about they are predatory, and they are, and they're just taking advantage of the worst people. And the ads on TV and whatever are just so sad because you got the happiest people in the world showing I got this money for my car, type of thing. It's just it's a real shame. So don't ever do that. I don't know if anybody in this room would ever do that. But the people that we've known in the church who have done that over time, our comments to them when we bail them out usually, and they pay us back when we find out about it, is that, look, if anything like that ever happened, again, you come to us first. We're your church family. We will help you. Don't sell your soul to do that kind of thing. So we have on occasion actually bailed people out, but we didn't totally give them the money because we want them to learn responsibility. So we would set up a payment plan to us at no interest over a period of sometimes years to help them and teach them how to handle their money properly, which is something we're going to be doing here as we go forward. But don't ever do that, folks. If you get in that situation or you know somebody in our church who's like that, who's coming to that place, make sure you reach out to us so that we can be a help to them. We have people in the church that are happy to help people like that. So, but credit cards are bad enough. So they are, like you see right here, you just can hardly get out from under this if you don't have some other money coming in. So let's talk about some principles concerning debt that should guide us as Christians. Here's the first one. The wicked borrow but do not repay, Psalm 37:21. So the Christian is obligated for debts that they take out. So we shouldn't be looking for opportunities to get around what we owe. If we owe money legitimately, we should work out a plan to pay it back. So that's a Christian should be doing that. They're not trying to take advantage of others. The only exception to that, I would say, and the very unusual exceptions would be like something that couldn't be helped. You were sued for money you don't have. You have medical bills that come against you that you simply can't pay, and so you have to do something to get around that. So there's things that might be exceptions, but normally if we take out loans, we are obligated as Christians to pay for them. Okay, so keep that in mind. Number two, you are in bondage to the lender. We looked at this verse before, 22:7 of Proverbs. The borrower is the lender's slave. Is that right? And so you are at the bondage. You're kind of the slave in the sense of the bank or wherever you borrowed your money from. You owe them something, and so that's important to know. 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 8. You're responsible to provide for your own family. That verse says if you don't take care of your own family, you're worse than an infidel or an unbeliever. So if you owe money, you need to be, as a leader of a family, if you have a family, you need to be take your responsibility very seriously, and getting in debt is not going to help your cause to do that. It's very hard to take care of your family properly when you're drowning in debt. Debt makes it easier to fund our greed. Luke 12:15. Let me read that one. Luke 12:15. It says, "Watch out, be on guard against every form of greed, for not even when one has an abundance does his life consist of his possessions." So Jesus warns of greed, and our possessions is not our life. We don't live for possessions. So it's important that we realize that debt simply makes it easier to fund our greed for a time until it boomerangs back on us. Now, with those principles in mind, when is debt acceptable? First of all, any questions or comments before I move on to this? Yeah, Bob?
Gary, I was thinking on the credit card debt, to do with the greed thing, it's something you can knee-jerk buy something you should, but I think it's always interesting on when they send you your bill, how much you owe, the first thing they tell you right under that is the minimum you can get by with. And I think that's a way of sucking you into just paying that $35 thing.
Now, they want you to do that. So, matter of fact, I brought an old statement from American Express. I have an American Express card that I don't use often, but once in a while I do. And here was one, and so here was the balance. And then it was a $981 balance on that particular bill. Okay, so Marcia must have bought something. I'm going to look it up right now, what we bought here. It's kind of bothering me now. Six Flag tickets, tons of money on Six Flag tickets. What happened there? Good night. Okay. That's when the college kids went and I put all the bills on my bill. Okay, anyway. So minimum payment for my $981.53 was $35. I'm home free. I can pay $35 a month for the rest of my life to pay this off. Actually, by law, they have to tell us how long it would take. It would take 3 years to pay that off at minimum. Okay, then I would pay $1,222 if I did that. And I called them. It was kind of funny today. I called them today, texted them on their website or through the app. What is your minimum? What is your interest rate right now? Well, I had to work hard to get that. They wanted to hide that. I thought it was more obvious. So I got some gal named Sonia that was chatting with me. Sonia, the robot, And I was talking to her, I said, what is the rate? And she said, I'll get right back to you. About 2 minutes later, I wrote back, this is not a hard question. Are you there? And she wrote me back and said, I'm here. I had to go check out some things. Come on, Sonia, right there on your computer. So it was only 17.5%. That's a pretty good deal. I should do more, right?
What was it on that statement?
It didn't have it.
That one doesn't.
I got a 4-page thing here. I thought it had to be by laws on here. I could not find it. So, and imagine there is some differences on your credit rating. Okay, so if you don't know about your credit rating, you can get Credit Karma and a credit rating for free. You can get it every day if you want it. So it's a good idea to keep track of that. If you have a credit card, you can get it through your credit card as well. But if you have a very good credit rating, I think your interest rate's probably a little lower than if you have a bad credit rating. So if you have it in the 800s, you have maybe this. If you have down the 600s, it might be 20%. I don't really know, but that's a possibility. Credit rating does matter. So keep a good credit rating if you can. Okay, let's look. Anybody else on that? Okay, let's look at some of the kinds of debts that are possible and whether any of them are any good for you. First of all, it went. Okay, well, I lost my notes. I don't think that's where I'm at yet. Let's see. What debt is acceptable? Here's a question. What debt is acceptable? Well, when it makes economic sense. Okay, when it's better for you to borrow than it is to spend, and you have to be honest about that, then that makes sense. So when there's a guaranteed way to repay it, all right, cool. Keep in mind we are responsible to pay our debts. So if the believer, for example, if a person borrowed $12,000 on a car, used car, and it loses $3,000 in value the first year, and then and you borrowed the whole amount from the bank at whatever interest rate you could get, you borrowed all $12,000 to buy the car, and of course the value of the car goes down, and then a year later you lose your job, and you can't pay back that $12,000. You can't even make your payments. And then the bank wants you to pay, so what do you have to do? Well, you have to go out and sell your car to pay off the bill, but the car is now worth $9,000 because the value's dropped, and you now don't have a car and you owe money for nothing. So you're upside down, as they say, in it. And that's, so if you don't have a means of paying the bill, don't presume on the future. You don't know if you could lose your job. You don't know if you might get sick. Don't put up borrow money you don't know that you can pay back. When it's not a violation of your personal and biblical values and goals, so make sure you are living in conformity with your personal values, your biblical goals, so that you're not, and that goes along with what Jesus said about greed. You know, you're not borrowing money to fund your greeds. These are needs. Okay, with that in mind, what kind of debt's acceptable? Let's talk about it. First of all, we're going to test these kinds of debts. Is credit card debt acceptable?
If you plan to pay it off at the end of the month.
Okay. So keep in mind now, this is one of the principles of credit card debt. You can use it, and a lot of people do a lot on credit cards. They like to get the rewards and that kind of stuff, because a lot of credit cards do that. But you're not going to, the rewards are limited, right? So when you see an ad on television, boy, I'm going to charge this big thing, I'll get 2% back. And that doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? I mean, you just charge $1,000, you get 2% back. Well, wow, how wonderful is that, huh?
That's only like $20.
Yeah, it's like $20. What's this going to do for you, right? So, Bob?
Yeah, listen, today's economy, they charge you to use your credit card now. So that's
Some places.
put a different slant on that also.
Yeah, some places do and some places don't.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, more and more restaurants are now taking cash. So I take my ones in there, I got about 50 ones in my pocket, and I deal them out 1 penny. They really like that. So, my change bottle, yeah.
Also, using it just for the rewards, there's been studies done that you actually do spend more, even if you're paying it off every month. You spend more because you're trying to get that next reward.
Some people do.
So,
Yeah.
you know, that's another thing to consider, that you might be spending more money that you wouldn't otherwise.
Yeah. One of the stats that was in some of the books was that we actually spend 35% more if you use credit cards in general than you would if you use checks and cash. Well, and that's largely because it's easier to charge. So, yeah, Tania?
Don't you need to use a credit card to build your credit rating? Or is
Yes.
there another way?
Yeah, there are other ways, but credit cards, you can build a credit rating. So if you control it, that's a key. So you can charge anything you want to charge, but you pay it off at the end of the month. If you do that, you don't pay any interest, and you do build your credit. So you younger people here that are just now building credit, you do need to build some credit. As a matter of fact, some people have actually gone and borrowed money from a bank for $1,000 and paid it back just to start building credit. So you do need to build credit. Take it seriously. It's very, very difficult to do a lot of things in this life without credit. Again, Ramsey doesn't like that. Dave Ramsey doesn't like that. But Dave Ramsey's a multimillionaire and he doesn't care. So you're not. So you might care. Okay. Okay. Credit card debt makes no sense if you're charging for things that are depreciating and things that have no value at all long term. For example, you're going to go on vacation, and you're going to charge $5,000 for your cruise and your plane tickets and all that. If this is a vacation you want to take, and you're paying it off at the end of the month, and you have the funds to do that, fine. But on the other hand, you don't have anything to show for it at the end except memories, and probably stomach flu, depending on where you're going. So keep in mind, you don't get any value from that. Same thing with any depreciating item. So Christmas time, I'm charging a lot of stuff for Christmas gifts, right? So go through Amazon, push 2 buttons, I'm done, and then at the end of the time, I've got to pay it. Okay, but none of these, I'm not going to be able to sell these items back at the end. I'd have to wrestle them out of the hands of my grandkids to sell them back, and then they still wouldn't be worth anything much. So credit cards, be very careful. If you're trying to fund things that are depreciating, you're not gaining anything financially. Kim?
And for those who keep a budget, I do, when I use a credit card, it comes off the budget the day I charge it. So it shows up in your budget as a debit and it's taken out of that
Okay.
month, so you can see what's happening at the bottom line
Okay.
for that month, and not 30 days when the bill comes due.
Yeah, because that's one of my things with credit cards. If I'm charging a lot, which like a Christmas or something, then here's a gift for $25. Here's one for $75. All well and good, and then I get a bill for $2,000, and somehow that always shocks me. I don't know why. But, $2,000 or $1,500. I'm just surprised. But that's a good plan. So it takes it right off. Okay, how about consumer debt? Consumer debt is where you go and you get these installment loans at a furniture store, or go to the credit agencies and get those kinds of loans, or you go to the bank to get a car loan, or buy appliances, whatever. Those are consumer debts. Clothing, you go every store in town that we frequent at all wants us to get their credit card. So whether it's Lowe's or Menards or anybody, J.C. Penney's or whatever, Macy's, they all want us to have their credit card. And and you can do that if you want to, I guess, but you've got to keep in mind, if you don't pay those bills off, then you are going to get dinged at the end of the payment. Then you have mortgage debt. Mortgage debt is, now we're starting to move into an acceptable kind of debt, because now you have an item. You bought something that has value, but you have to be careful that you're buying a house at a reasonable price, a house that you could turn around and resell if you had to, and hopefully that it's appreciating at least at the rate of interest of inflation. And there's some other values to keep in mind too. Some people buy houses way out of their range, financial range, and then they have to work more than they should work, and they take time away from their family in order to pay the bills. Maybe you have to take a second job or something like that to be able to pay these bills. So be careful even with buying a house. And you don't have to, as we talked about a few weeks ago, you don't have to. the bank will loan you 200,000 when your budget says I need a house for 100,000. But the bank doesn't care what your budget says. You know, just so you don't have to buy up to the limit. Also, and this is, a lot of people just don't get this, but sometimes it's better to rent, especially in a place like Springfield where the value doesn't go up all that much. For at least, if you're going to be in a place for short term, for a couple of years or so, don't buy a house. Go rent. If you're a lot of seniors, for some reason they've known all their life they've got to have a house. They're getting into 70s or 80s. I heard a guy the other day, almost 90 years old, bought a house. And my question was, why? I don't know this person, but the person is telling me, why would they buy a house at that age? Well, they got to have a place to be. You can rent cheaper probably, and you don't have to have all the upkeep. They're looking for the appreciation, but a lot of times it's not there. It's all right to rent sometimes. You've got to run the numbers and look carefully at what's best for that. But normally, if you're going to be in the same place for a long time, normally buying a house is a good plan. Short term, not necessarily. So keep that in mind as you go forward. The last kind of debt is investment, educational, and business debt. That can make sense. Let me talk about investment debt. We're going to get to the good stuff next time. So the investments, that's the fun stuff. So we're going to get into that and look at all the different instruments, all the different options that are out there. But one of the ways that people buy stock or bonds and so forth is borrowing money to do so. They buy it on the margin, they call it. That's a pretty good way to go bankrupt, because you're putting out money at interest through the stock companies, through the brokers. You're borrowing money from the brokers to buy stock that you don't own. So, for example, you want to buy $5,000 worth of stock. You only have $2,000. So you borrow the money from the broker to buy the $5,000 stock. Well and good if the stock goes up. But what happens if the stock goes down and you've got to sell it? Margin call, and that's right. So they'll call the margin. That's what they call it. So they get a phone call or something from somebody that says, "Hey, your stock has dropped so much, you got to pay up, and you got to pay up that money now, and your stock just dropped, and you don't have the money. So where are you going to pay? Where are you going to get money to pay off that margin? Huh? A loan, yeah. You're going to get a loan. You're going to put it in a credit card. You're going to ask grandma something. You're going to do something. And but that's a good way. I do not, we'll look at investments later, but I do not encourage anybody to borrow for investments. If you can't afford to pay for it, don't do it. Okay, same thing with education. Now, education is a different thing. It's very rare that people today, unless you have some special blessings, can go through school without some kind of loan. But be very careful with that as much as possible, because those things, I've known people that have carried student loans for 30 years. And that really cramps your life in so many ways. So be as careful as you can with that. I encourage you not to borrow everything they'll let you borrow. I encourage you to work, if you're going through that, for some of you students, work in the summer. I worked 70 hours a week going through the summer when I was going through college. I worked 2 or 3 jobs when I was at Moody. I tried to keep that debt way down. Of course, that was back in the day when it was a lot cheaper to go to school. You know, Abraham Lincoln was just given the emancipation and allowed some of us to go to school. But anyway, try your best to keep that as low as possible, so you don't get yourself in a situation where you can almost never pay it off. It might not even be a bad idea to take a year off of school and work for a while and get some money. Jim?
I've heard this rule of thumb out there recently, and it's hard for some people to hear that with regard to student debt. If you cannot tie your degree to an income stream after you graduate, the degree is not worth it.
By income stream, you mean what?
There's a definite job out there for you somewhere
Okay.
that actually makes real money.
Real money.
That's hard for
Yeah.
people to say. They have a passion about some specific area of schooling, but there's a lot of money to be borrowed to get that degree, and there's no money to be made after they're done.
Okay. So looking even at what degree you're getting to see if it's going to be lucrative later to pay off the bill.
I know a young guy right now in an orchestra. And he's going to a very expensive school. And thankfully, he's getting some money from the school
Okay.
scholarship-wise.
Yeah.
But it's those kinds of majors that there's just no income stream guaranteed when they're done. And meanwhile, they're 150 grand in debt when they're done.
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to feel for people doing that. So, and now business loan too. A lot of people borrow money to start a business. Sometimes it's almost necessary, but be very careful because 50% of all small businesses fail in the first 5 years. So, okay. And remember, every time somebody gets involved in some kind of a business situation, an investment situation, it's the people that are getting you involved, people that are selling you the products or whatever, it's always a great deal, isn't it? You ever had a salesman tell you, this isn't a very good deal? They're going to always tell you, this is a great deal. You need to get in on this. All right? And the same thing with people that are selling you stocks or whatever. You need to get in on this. It's a great deal. I mean, the question you might want to ask them is, if it's such a great deal, why don't you do it? And leave me alone type of thing. But if you're going to start a small business, keep in mind that there's a 1 in 2 chance you will fail. And are you going to have the money to pay off that loan if you fail? So borrowing money for anything is risky. Borrowing money for a business is questionable. I would suggest if you've got a great idea for a business, you want to start, you work for a few years and save up the money, and then start your business with your own money. If you lose it, you lose your own money, not money you can't afford to not pay back.
Out of the 50%, the vast majority of those failures are because of the debt.
Just can't manage the debt.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you do borrow, you got to borrow reasonably. Yeah. Bob?
You know, when I was an apprentice, my journeyman set us a couple boys down, and he was eating lunch, and he says, when you guys leave me, this is a rule of thumb you should use. You'll get some big checks, but you take a third for the company, a third for the truck, and a third's yours. And I did that.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah. So you're not spending everything that's coming in.
No,
Yeah.
and you really control that, and it never had any debt.
Okay. Good. Good. So okay, let's look at some common mistakes now that people make with debt. Number one, is a consumptive lifestyle. Bob's example right there is real good. So people borrow so that they can live high on the hog, so to speak, so that they can live this particular lifestyle. So much wiser to control that, as Bob was mentioning, instead of living. So let's say you have $100,000 coming in up here, but you could live on 50,000 or 75,000. But you could live on 100,000. Okay, which would be wiser? Live on the 75,000 and put away that other money for other needs or things that could blow up in your face, or to live and spend every penny of it. So consumptive lifestyle is hard, and that's very difficult because our hedonistic society says, enjoy it now. After all, you only go around once in life, right? So you better live it up, and and you're worth it. All those kinds of slogans. Those advertisements are pretty much everywhere, trying to get us to overspend. So the solution: don't allow others to control your spending. You control your spending. Don't allow the advertisers and the salesmen to control you. Here's another mistake. Number 2. Lack of a budget. Going back to what Kim just said, we spent 4 weeks looking at setting up a budget. So if you haven't done that yet, you need to do so. A budget just shows your guidelines of how much money you got coming in and how much is going out, and so you really know you really know what's going on. Without some kind of a budget, and some people might be very minute, and have all the details down to the penny. Others might be a little looser, but you have an idea. You know what your bills are. You know the big picture, and therefore you're not surprised when things come in and you're not ready for it. So a budget is very, very important. At least some kind of budget that you can develop. That according to our first 4 lessons. So if you weren't here with us, and you need to go back and look at that, they're all, I think, on the YouTube thing on our network, and you can look it up. And we got the papers for you, Jared.
Ramsey has an excellent app called Every system, and
Okay.
it's a month-by-month budget.
Okay,
And I've done budgets before, and they never really went anywhere, but this, I've been doing it for 3 years now, and it's good just because if you do month by month, December is different than January.
Okay.
As far as expenses, so you can plan for
Mhm.
Christmas and birthdays and
Yeah.
graduation parties and all that, so it's more specific.
do you have to join something to get that kind of thing?
Free.
It's a
They
freebie?
do have a premium version, but you can enter all this stuff in for free,
Okay,
and you just have to keep up with your transactions,
okay.
like actually manually put them in, but,
Is that like on his website or something?
if you just searched every dollar on, like, an app
Okay.
store or something, you find it.
Okay, now the simpler version I gave you earlier were just on paper. So you have this chart with all the bills and so forth that you mark off as you pay them, that this would be a computerized program.
The advantage to the app, though, is like if you and your wife both have it on your phone. So when you edit it or add something to it, it goes to her phone, you both have access to
You both
the
know
same
it.
data.
Okay,
And Jared, doesn't that app kind of categorize your expenses, so you see how much you're spending in different categories? And I think you gotta set those categories up in
Yeah, you have freedom to do anything with it, like you can have spending, like, if you wanna save for something, you can have a savings goal for something, you can edit it however
okay,
you want and make your own categories and
okay. And the name of it again is
every dollar.
Every Dollar. Okay, good. So if you like to have a program that does that with you or for you, look at that one. Something, get something, you can do it on paper, you can do it through apps, you can do it through other forms. There's lots of things out there to help you. Okay, how about another one here? A third mistake, buying and selling automobiles. So pretty much all financial planners will tell you that the biggest financial drain in our life is cars. Cars are expensive to buy, they're expensive to maintain, and the average depreciation of a new car, so I looked this up today, the average depreciation of a new car is between 20 and 35% the first year. So if you bought a $40,000 car, and, anymore it's hard to buy under 30, right? Because they're so expensive. So if you have a $40,000 car, so you lost $8,000 the first year. Basically, when you drove it off the lot, you lost $8,000, and it continues to go down year after year. Some cars hold up better than others, but most all cars drop in price very quickly, and when you couple that with this, that most people, a lot of people, buy a car, pay it off, it depreciates out, and as soon as they make the last payment, they buy another car. So that's pretty typical probably of a lot of people. I don't know what the numbers are anymore. Years ago, when I was a young man, that was extremely likely in people I knew. I remember we were up in Peoria, East Peoria, and almost everybody there worked for Caterpillar. And so they're working factory jobs. They paid pretty good jobs, but they're all factory workers. And everybody kept their car 3 years. So and if it got up to 60,000 miles, they thought, man, this car's wore out. And back in that time, they were pretty much wore out. Cars have vastly improved. Those of you that have a fondness for old cars, I hope you also have a fondness for working on old cars, because that's going to happen as well. But that's one thing that's definitely improved in my lifetime and yours is the quality of cars. It's really hard to find anymore a car that isn't made pretty well, because there's so much competition. So, but if you're going to sell it, you're going to get rid of it and trade it in, every time you pay it off, then you're going to be perpetually in debt with cars. So we would recommend that you not do that. The solution is this: drive your present car till it's at least 10 years old. That's a good rule of thumb. So unless you bought a heap to begin with, drive it for 10 years. So if you have bought a halfway decent car, do your best to keep it for 10 years. That's a good rule of thumb. So just start with that. You start thinking, well, I'd like to have a new car. This one's 8 years old. Hang in there for 2 more years. That's a really good rule of thumb. And the cheapest car, do you know what the cheapest car in America is to own? Your car. That's right, the car you own. And why is that? You've heard that before, right? Why is that? Well, I know a lot of people, a car starts needing repair, and so they think, well, I might as well get rid of this junker because it's starting to break down. So I'm going to buy a new car, get rid of that problem. But think about it for a moment. Let's say your car suddenly needs brakes and something else, and it's $1,200, okay, to fix that car. Your car is 8 years old, and you're thinking, well, it's getting up there. It's got 120,000 miles on it or whatever, and it's 8 years old, and I guess I got to put $1,200. Maybe I'll just sell it. But think about it for a moment. At $1,200, that's $100 a month. Where are you going to get a car for $100 a month if you're borrowing? You're not. Even if your engine blew up and it cost you $6,000, you're at $500 a month to repair the engine. It's going to be hard to find a decent car under $500 a month. So try your best to keep your car as long as you can. Buy a good quality car. Find a good mechanic. Take good care of your cars. Make sure you change your oil. If you don't know what oil is, find out from somebody else. You know. So if you don't know a thing about cars, find somebody that does and make them your friend, right? But if you can keep the car going for 10 years and you take good care of it, you're going to be much better off. Yeah.
I've been hearing on cars from different areas, that's the number one thing that trashes a car, not doing oil change.
Not doing your maintenance.
And they're talking specifically oil
Yeah.
changes. So when it's time for an oil change, do it. Your car will last a long, long time if you do oil changes.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder, I mean, most new cars tell you when they need an oil change.
Yeah,
But-
they're citing way beyond what they should be at this point. They're telling you to go 10,000 miles.
Yeah.
And all the sites and mechanics are talking about, don't ever go past 6,000.
Okay.
You're talking about synthetic oil.
What?
The synthetic oils.
Yeah, they say don't even go past
Yeah, but I'm saying
6,000
that's for synthetic oils.
for the 10,000 miles. But they say don't go past 6,000.
For synthetic oils, the regular oils is 3,000, right?
Yeah, 3,000 or 4,000. I don't know.
Okay. Okay, on the synthetic oil thing, so you get in your oil change by somebody, the synthetic oil is better. So you're going to pay more money, but your car lasts longer. So those kinds of little things, keep your tires inflated, things like that. Just something that keeps the car rolling. If it has a minor problem, fix it. You know? So, but the longer you can keep it, the better. Here's an example. And then our last thing, which I've said 2 times before, you pay off your car, you bought a car, you paid it off in 3 or 4 years. I think the average now for car payments is closer to 5 if you bought a newer car because they're getting so expensive. Okay, so but you paid it off 3 or 4 or 5 years, and you're going to keep it for 10. So what are you going to do with that extra money that you've been paying that payment for with? That's right. Put it in another account or somehow save it aside so that you're making that same payment to yourself for the next 5 years, 4 or 5 years, 6 years. What happens then? Well, I got a little statistic here for you. So if you put let's see, if you got your car paid off and you put about $250 a month aside at 10%. Now the stock market this year, you know how much the stock market went up this year?
Talking the last 3 months?
This year.
33%, I think.
It's closer to 30%, I think, high 20s for this year. And that's unusual.
How much of that was the last, 2 months?
Well, see, here's the thing about, and we'll get into investments next week. The thing is, you don't time the market if you want to make money in it. The market's going to go up and down, and every year you make most of your money on a handful of days. So out of 360 days of a year, you make most of your money on 10 days. And if you take it out, go back and forth, thinking you can time the market, you're not likely to do it. If you get lucky, you might make it, but not likely. Anyway, so let's go back to my little illustration. You got $250 a month. You put away at 10%. The average stock market return for the last 20 years is now at 11%. It was around 8 or 9, but with the good stuff going on, it's 11%. So I'm going to go at 10. At the end of 8 years, so you bought this car, paid it off, you kept it for 8 more years, you would have $33,700. If you only got 8% on your money, you'd have $30,800. If you only had 5%, you got $27,400. Okay, those are numbers. Now, think about that. Now you're ready for a car. Your car's dying. And you've been saving for actually, in this illustration, 8 years, paying yourself this money. You go down and look at this account, and you might have to, like Gabby said, you might want to put it in a separate account just so you don't get excited and see a bunch of money and run and take it. So you got this money separated out, and you go down there and look, I got $30,000 sitting here designated for a car. I just been putting $250 a month away into this investment for all this time, and I've not touched it, and here it is, $30,000. Now I want to buy a car. I've got the money. Between the $30,000 and the trade-in, you can buy a pretty good car, maybe even a brand new car, depending on what you want to get. And then you don't ever pay the rest of your life. You don't pay a car loan. The rest of your life, you just keep on doing that, $250 a month, forever and ever and ever, and keep it building up, and you never have a car loan again. The biggest financial mistake in America is cars. People ruin themselves with vehicles. We love cars. We love them, and we spend money on them. If you got the money to do it, okay. If not, do what I just said. Okay? Okay, let's bring it together here. Cheapest car to own is your one you presently own. Even if it does look like a dog and it's rusty to death, it's still cheap. And a matter of fact, if it gets dinged by somebody, you don't care. Isn't that good? That's the thing I like about an old car. When I've had old cars, if somebody hit me, okay, so what? Give me $10, I'll go my way, So if I lived in Chicago, I'd buy me the ugliest looking car with a great engine I could find. And I could bounce off the cars going down this thing, and get by with that. Okay.
And then when it's told, you think, thank you, Lord.
Yeah. I'm going to tell you a sinful thing I did once. So I had this old Honda Civic that was really, really coming to the very end of its run. It was just putting along. And I was thinking that somebody was tailgating me, and I for a moment I thought, slam the brakes and get myself a new car out of this. But I resisted the temptation to sin. But you didn't, Bob?
With an old car also, if you need to get in traffic, just pull out in front of a new car. He'll let you in every time.
And so, watch who you're around. The BMW is not going to hit you. And if you go in a parking lot and you're worried about dings, park by a fancy car or a fancy truck. They're not going to hit you. You pull right up next to them. It's even fun. And they're not going to do anything to you. Right? But don't pull up by a jalopy. Now, good things you got to think about. Good point.
I have a very vivid memory of sitting in the back seat of that Honda Civic, going from Riverside Park after a softball game when I was a kid and watching the Lions go by.
Hey, it still had several years in it. That thing went on forever. I eventually gave it to somebody. I've told this story before. I gave it to somebody when they needed it and I didn't need it anymore. I gave it to them. They drove it for a couple of years. They gave it to somebody else in the church who needed it, and they drove it for a couple of years. And then they gave it to Cliff, of course, Dad. He sold it for $500.
To Dan Anderson.
Probably to Dan Anderson, who sold it to somebody else. Bethany's driving it today.
Tried to sell it to somebody.
You're not driving it? You don't have a Honda Civic? Ah, man.
I'm kidding.
Yeah, I think that was before that, but yeah.
That's what would happen now.
Oh, that's what happened now. Yeah. All right. Okay, let's kind of wrap it up. When Discover Card came out years ago, Sears owned it at the time, and Sears, their experts told them this: they expected the credit card usage in America, all usage, to go up $35 billion, just because they had another opportunity to charge money. That was years ago. The mere use of credit cards as a convenience will cause the average family to spend 34% more. And I did run up something I wanted to show you. I'll talk to you about for a moment. So the average credit card balance in the United States, this is money people are not paying it off at the end of the month. This is their average balance in America right now. This is all people, all ages, Gen Z, all the way up to the silent generation. I'm not sure who the silent generation is. I've never met one of those people. No, it's the old people. It's the really old people.
That's the generation before the greatest generation.
Yeah. It's 78 up. I know who they are. I just never saw anybody that was that quiet. But anyway, how much do you think the average person carries in credit card debt?
$8,000?
Did you look it up, Jeff?
I heard it before.
Okay. That's pretty close. $8,600 is the average. And that was, when I did this in 2019, same thing, the average then was $5,300. So, and since the pandemic, the average credit card bill has gone up $3,300 for the average person. And this thing here breaks it down by ages. So Gen Z only has 3,200. Millennials, 6,500. Generation X, that's 43 to 58-year-olds. They got 9.1. Baby boomers is 6.6, and the silent people are 3.4.
Silent people.
Yeah, silent people. But the average is $8,600. Now, this is money you're paying interest on every month. So the average person is doing that today in America. Most people carry that. And 55% do not pay off their bills at the end of the month. That's on average. Okay. One stat I couldn't verify. This was from the 2019, but so I couldn't verify it today. But 80% of Americans own more than they owe. Owe more than they own. The other way around. 80% owe more than they own. Okay, so if you own, if all your net worth is, let's say, $50,000, because you have a house and cars and money, and it's making this number up. If you had $50,000, 80% of people would owe more than that on their mortgages, their credit cards, their loans, and so forth. So it'd be maybe 60, 70,000 the average person owns. So most people are in debt. I'll look up for next time how many people are living paycheck to paycheck. It's frightening. The number of people that if they couldn't get to their next paycheck, could not pay their bills. It's a frightening number. And to live that way is very anxious, a lot of anxiety here, right? I can't pay my bill. If I can't pay my car, if I can't pay my utilities, if I can't pay my credit card, how anxious does that make people? Bob?
Yeah, there's an advertisement out now, get your paycheck when you want it. And in other words, you get paid on Friday. If you want your money on Wednesday, apparently this company will provide it. That's gotta be a super interest scheme.
Well, isn't that the payday loans? That'd be similar
It's probably just an online version.
online version of payday loans.
Surfers nowadays, they always get paid like the day of. That's pretty normal.
Every day?
Yeah, every day. Like
During
when you walk-
COVID, they started doing that, like even at fast food places, like
Did they?
work today, get paid today.
Yeah, when you walk out of your shift, you get paid.
Okay.
But they started having problems with people coming back to work.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let me give you this here and we'll be done. If you're in debt now, there are 3 ways out. And most people are in debt. So if you're in debt right now, 3 things you can do. Number 1, sell assets to reduce debt. So I'm going to talk about this the other day when we were talking about stuff. But so in other words, a lot of people have stuff laying around that they don't use anymore, that they could sell. And you can do better now than garage sales if you want to go after it. You got the Facebook Marketplace, you got the eBays, you got other options where you can actually sell some of this stuff that is just accumulating in your garage, and you don't have a real need for it, and you can get some money for it. Jim?
Dave Ramsey has a great line with this. He says, so much stuff the kids think they're next.
Yeah, they start getting nervous, right? Yeah. You may or may not have stuff like that, but there's garages full of stuff. All these short storage buildings that are around here, all that stuff. If a lot of those people are probably in this category we're talking about, they don't have money. They could sell that stuff instead of storing it. So how much does it cost to rent a storage place now? one of these storage units.
$1,500 a month probably, right?
I don't know.
Depends on the size.
Depends on the
Depends on the size
I know one person's paying $175 a month for one.
for one. Okay, probably a big one, but still. And isn't that over there by Menards? Isn't all those units going to be huge?
They're everywhere.
Yeah, they're all over town, but they're over at Menards, they're building, must be hundreds of them. And apparently they'll be filled in a minute. So all this stuff in these storage, now sometimes you need a storage thing, you got temporary stuff, and maybe you're in between moves or something like that. But normally you don't need to be accumulating all this stuff. Find a good outlet to sell it and get it back, get some stuff.
Build a storage facility.
You could build your own. Yeah, because over time that gets very, very expensive. But I'm just thinking, and people's garage. I got a neighbor. I'd like to sell everything in his garage, because he's got all the holidays, 3-car garage stuffed full of holiday stuff. He's bringing out the Christmas stuff now. It looks like a zoo out there, and I bet he could sell that stuff for pretty good money. But apparently that isn't his plan. But a lot of people that need money have things they could sell. You got 3 lawnmowers, sell 2 of them, get a decent one, sell the other 2. You got a car you're not driving. I'm amazed how often I drive around different places and people got cars that they obviously haven't used in a long, long time. I don't understand people have cars up on blocks, which is illegal in most places, who could sell those things, if nothing else, as junk for $500, but they're not doing it. It just doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Could they be saving it for their kids? Because I know my parents, they saved their older cars. 'Cause I drove in a car that was made the same year I was born.
Okay.
So could they be saving it for their kids?
Yeah, in some occasions, you got a nostalgia situation, something you want to keep for some reason. But a lot of times, people just don't get around to getting rid of them. Yeah. Okay, secondly, set up a repayment schedule. So if you owe money, and you're going to have to sit down and carefully say, how much can I pay off here? I can't pay the minimum, or I'll never get it paid off. So how much more can I pay? So I would recommend you do that, even if you're not right now capable of paying off your credit cards and whatever, or your other kind of loans. Start a plan where you're paying more on the principal anyway. Even if it's $10 more a month, and you build up as you get opportunity to add to that. Set up a repayment schedule and get that paid down. If you own a house and you got a mortgage, and if you can, pay extra on the mortgage. Another $100 a month on the mortgage will reduce the amount of time to pay off that by years. Just another $100, putting it on the principal. So that's an option. So I would encourage you on mortgages, if you're buying a house, get a 30-year loan, so you don't have any so you're less likely to have to come up with money because it's a lower payment, and then pay extra on that loan to pay that house down as quickly as you can. And you won't miss it if you're doing it on a regular basis as part of your schedule. The last thing is apply any unexpected money that may come your way to debt reduction. So you think, oh, when is that going to happen? But it happens. You get Christmas gifts, you get birthday gifts, you get a rebate on your taxes, you get somebody just being nice to you that wants to help you out for some reason. Any number of things that could happen. So you get somebody wants to help you out a little bit or being nice to you, and they gave you $1,000. Okay, you can go out and buy a bunch of stuff with that, or you can say, I got a lot of loans out. I'm going to put that $1,000 over here. And every time that happens, do that. And if it's all possible, we talked about this with income a couple times ago. If your income goes up, and most years it goes up, if you can, instead of raising your lifestyle, take that raise and put it into debt reduction. Now that isn't the happiest thing. You'd like to live a little bit looser and happier with that, but you got loans to pay off. And as soon as you get rid of those loans, the better.
And the thing is, you need to look at the reward you're going to feel.
Yeah.
The day you get that paid off, because it's a freedom
Yeah.
that you cannot explain. So you've got to look for the reward
Yeah.
you're going to get.
Yeah. It feels really good to pay off a debt. Yeah. So celebrate. Buy a McDonald's.
Call Dave Ramsey and scream on the phone. I think that's what you're supposed to do, right?
Is that what you're supposed to do? Call Dave Ramsey and scream?
That's what they do. They have free scream.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
And when you pay off that debt, that's an automatic raise.
Yeah.
Yeah, because from that point on,
It's stuff you
that's
can
your
use.
money. It's not
So we talked before, we'll finish up with this, but if you have 5 credit card loans, and you pay off one, take that money and put it into paying off the other loan quicker, okay? Ramsey recommends you do the smallest loan first, pay that off first, because that gives you a thrill that you paid something off. I don't know if that's the best or not.
John Henry says no.
John Henry?
He says the math says no. You
Yeah.
do the highest interest
That-
first.
that's what I think too.
But the behavioral part of us,
Yeah.
Ramsey's right.
Yeah.
Because you have that experience of success.
Right.
and keep it going.
But mathematically, it's better to pay off the one with the highest loan. And so, and also keep in mind, we'll finish with this, keep in mind if you have credit card debt, there are teaser rates that you can get on a regular basis that will take your balances. So you got $5,000, if you're paying at 18%, you can roll that into a teaser rate for 6 months or a year with another credit card company that will charge you 0 for a year. And when that runs out, get another teaser rate. You don't have to be paying 18% even on credit cards because you can do this other thing, but you have to work at it. Most people are lazy by nature, but you have to work at it. You got to go on the internet. You got to look. Got to see what's out there. And when we look next time at investments, same thing. What are the better investments? What's the best place to put your money? Who's paying the best CD rates? And so forth. That takes a little work, but it is worth your time. Okay, we're done, and you're out of debt, and so way to go.